friends, welcome back. In today's tutorial I have a crochet front tie cardigan slash vest top. It's really easy to make and I hope you all enjoy. The yarn I used was called Mixed Cake in the color pink, and I found this yarn at Daiso, which is basically the equivalent of a dollar store here in Japan. It is 100% acrylic and I used about 3 skeins, so almost about 240 grams of yarn. So I also used a 5mm crochet hook for the entire project. To start the front panel, we will be making a slip knot and then start by chaining 47 stitches. This is to make a size large, but if you would like to make it bigger or smaller, just measure yourself from your side to the middle of your chest. Then make that length in chains, but make sure your total is divisible by 4. If your total length in chains is in between 2 divisibles by 4, then just choose a smaller divisible if you have a smaller chest and the larger one for a larger chest. After you have your set of chains, add 2 more to start the next row. Once you have finished with the amount of chains for your length, you are going to count 3 chains from your hook and double crochet into that one. Now make another double crochet into that same stitch. And this will have finished your first 3 double crochet cluster. That first 2 chains from the beginning counts as your first double crochet in every single row from now on. After that, you will chain 1, count 3 chains from the first double crochet cluster, and double crochet into the next one. So again, you will make a cluster of 3 double crochets into 1 stitch, chain 1, and then you will count 3 chains to skip, make another 3 double crochet clusters into the next stitch. You will repeat this pattern all the way until the end of this row. Once you have finished your first row, it's going to look a little like this. Now to start row 2, you are going to chain 3. Now you will always chain 3 whenever you finish a row with a 3 double crochet cluster. So after you chain 3, turn your work and you will make a 3 double crochet cluster into the next chain space. Now you will not be chaining into the chain 1, but you will actually just be chaining around the whole chain. Next, chain 1 and you will start again another 3 double crochet cluster into the next chain space. You will continue this pattern all the way until the end of row 2. To finish off row 2, you will make one last 3 double crochet cluster, and instead of chaining 1 at the end, you will make a double crochet straight into the last 3 double crochet, which is going to be the chain 2 from the start of the work. So here I have just finished making the last 3 double crochet cluster of row 2, and I will be making a double crochet into this last 2 chains from the last row. And these 2 chains, remember that these are the first double crochet into the double crochet cluster of the next row. So to start row 3, we will chain 2, and remember that this chain 2, it counts as 1 double crochet. Make 2 more double crochets to make our 3 double crochet cluster. Chain 1 after that. And now we start our pattern all over again until the end of row 3. So again, make 3 double crochet cluster into the next chain space, and then chain 1 and repeat all the way until the end. You will continue to repeat rows 2 and 3 all the way until you have reached row 15. So once you are ready to start row 15, you will start by chaining 3. This row will begin the decreases for the front panel. Now turn your work over. Instead of making 2 double crochets into that first stitch, you will skip on over to the next chain space and make a 3 double crochet cluster. After that cluster, you will chain 1 and continue the 3 double crochet cluster and chain 1 pattern all the way until you finish row 15. From here on out, only one side of your panel will continue to be straight and the other side will continue to decrease as you go on row to row. You will start row 16 by chaining 3 and continuing the 3 double crochet cluster pattern and chain 1 all along up until you get to the very end. So here we are at the end of row 16, and this is where we will be making our last 3 double crochet cluster for this row. If you are done with the 3 double crochet cluster, you will not be chaining 1, but instead you will be making a double crochet at the top of the last double crochet of the cluster from the previous row. So like this. And this will make the decrease for row 16. To start row 17, you will chain 3 again, just how you did on row 15, and you will turn your work and immediately start a 3 double crochet cluster into the next chain space. And you will continue this pattern, rotating between row 15 and row 16's pattern all the way up until you have finished row 30. Once you finish row 30, you will cut and tie off your work, and that will have completed one of your front panels, either your left or right side. So this is what you should end up with after you have finished row 30. On one side you should have a chain 3, in the middle you should have 3 double crochet clusters, and on one side a decrease of double crochet. Next, you will make sure to repeat this pattern all over again to make a second set for your either left or right side front pieces. To start the back side, I made a chain of 62 stitches. That is for a size large, but remember, if you would like to make it bigger or smaller, make sure to measure yourself from side to side along your back. And remember to make that chain in length. That number should be divisible by 4 and then add 2 chains after that. The back piece will be worked the same as the front pieces. So into the 3rd chain from the hook, you will double crochet into that one and then make another double crochet, and this will be your first 3 double crochet cluster, just the same as we did for the front pieces. After this, chain 1, skip 3 chains, and make another 3 double crochet cluster into the 4th chain. You will continue this pattern just as we did for the front pieces. Repeat rows 2 and 3 all the way up until you have reached row 23. So here we are. Now that we have reached row 23, we are going to start it as usual and chain 2, then turn your work, and we are going to make 2 double crochets into that first stitch to make our first 3 double crochet cluster. This double crochet cluster will count as our first cluster for this row. This row we will be only making 7 3 double crochet clusters and then 1 double crochet in the next chain space to begin the decrease for our straps. Okay, so once you have finished your 7 double crochet clusters, you will not be chaining one, but remember to make a double crochet into the next chain space. After this, you will chain 3 and make a 3 double crochet cluster into the next chain space after you have turned your work. This will start the decrease for your straps. Make sure to repeat this pattern just as you did for rows 16 and 17 from your front pieces, and you will repeat those rows following all the way until you finish row 30, just as you did for the front piece. So remember that one side should be always decreasing and the other side should be a straight edge going up. So this is what the end of row 30 should look like. On one side you should have your chain 3 decrease, 3 double crochet clusters in the middle, and 1 last double crochet to finish off. Now this next step is completely optional, but it is in order to sew one of the front pieces and the back piece together. And you don't have to do this, but it's just what I like to do. And you could actually just take a darning needle and sew these sides together, but I like to just put both pieces together and one on top of the other. Make sure one edge is the straight side together and the other edge is the decreasing side together. And I like to just go ahead and put my crochet hook into the very first last stitch on the top corner and put it through the top of both and make a slip stitch. I put it through every single stitch that we made at the top of this panel and the back panel, and just keep on slip stitching all the way through until we have finished putting together the back piece with one of the front side pieces. Slip stitching all the way through, I simply chain one more time and then cut and tie, and the last strands of yarn that we have at the end, I just go ahead and weave them into the slip stitches that we made. And I find this a great way to hide even better the extra strands of yarn that you end up weaving in. I don't know, this is just my preferred method, but again, go ahead with what you feel more comfortable. If you feel more comfortable with the darning needle, then go ahead and do that. So now we'll begin to make the other side for the decreasing strap on our back piece. You will start row 23 on the opposite side, and again you will be making 7 double crochet clusters, and then you will be making a double crochet decrease into the same chain space that you made your decrease for your other side of your strap. You will start by making a slip knot, and then after that you will insert your hook into the last double crochet of the previous row. Now bring up your slip knot that you've made, and you will start chaining 3 as if you were going to continue the pattern as usual. After the chain 3, then you will officially start your very first 3 double crochet cluster for this row. After that, count the rest of your 6 3 double crochet clusters and then make your double crochet decrease into the next chain space without chaining one. So after your 7th double crochet cluster, remember, do not chain 1 and just make a double crochet straight into the next chain space. Chain 3, turn over your work, and you will now begin your 24th row. And again, continue to decrease on one side while keeping a straight edge on the other side, just as you did for the other strap on your back piece. Again, continue to crochet until you have reached the very top, which is row 30. Now for my case, I ended up reaching row 31, and this was in order to make sure my top row was a double crochet, 3 double crochet clusters, and a chain 3 at the very end, just to make sure that my top sides would match for sewing purposes at the very end. So here we are at the end of row 31, and now I will begin to slip stitch both my back piece and the last front side panel. And now remember, again, this is completely optional, but you are more than welcome to just take your darning needle and sew up both sides together. But in my opinion, I just find it a lot easier to slip stitch both pieces, so that is what I will do. So again, once I have finished making my slip stitches, I will chain 1, and then finally I will cut and tie off everything. Again, I will be weaving in all of the ends that I cut and tie off into the slip stitches that I just made. So next we will be putting together the sides, and again, this is completely optional, but I will be slip stitching the sides together. You are more than welcome to use a darning needle and just sew up the sides together if you prefer that. But we will be starting at the very end and the bottom of the sides, and I will just be using a slip knot and going into each stitch on the sides and stitching all the way up until we reach the top of row 14 from both the back and one of the front side panels. You need to make the armholes bigger or smaller. Just remember that you can easily adjust that by simply sewing either more or less rows together on the sides. Once you have finished sewing both sides together, you will begin to make the front tie. Now I just made a slip knot and made a chain of 80, but you are more than welcome to make it longer or smaller if you wish to. Once you have reached your desired length for your front tie, into the second chain from the hook, you will make a slip stitch. Now from here on out until you finish this chain, you will be making slip stitches all the way down, and that is basically going to finish up your tie piece. So now that I have finished slip stitching my chain 80, I am just going to make one last chain, and this will officially end my tie piece. Now after I cut and tie off, just remember to weave in these extra ends into the slip stitches that you made, and these slip stitches will help to hide the ends that you weave in to make it a whole lot easier. So once you have finished up your front tie, it should look a little like this. And now you are going to go ahead and take your work and flip it inside out so that the slip stitches, or that the ends that you sewed together, are facing the inside of your work. Attaching the tie to the front piece at the end of row 14. This row should be the last row that is complete before you start decreasing. Take your hook and insert it into that last double crochet of that row, and you will take your front tie, pull it through that loop, and now you have one side attached with the front tie. You will do the same thing by finding the top of row 14 from the other side of your front piece and inserting your hook into that top stitch again and bringing through the rest of the tie. Now, this location where we are attaching our front tie is completely optional, but this is where I believe it looks best just because it's where we start decreasing on our front pieces. And yeah, you are more than welcome to make a second set of ties and attach it to the top and the bottom as well. But again, this is completely optional for you. This is where you can get a little creative with it and make it your own if you wish. Hope you all enjoyed this free pattern that I made for you all. Remember that it is 100% customizable to your own fittings. If you want to add any extra detailings, feel free to add so. And yeah, thanks again for watching, guys. Remember to subscribe to the channel. I will be posting more crochet content. And yeah, that's all for today. Thanks for watching. Bye.